So today we are going over Justice League America issue 77. We'll continue Aliens 3 and 4 here shortly, but I wanted to go over this because I just recently picked up the Page Puncher's Martian Manhunter, which is absolutely fantastic. And this comic is the one that comes with this figure, and we will eventually be reviewing it. But yeah, it was fun trying to get it out of the packaging. I know that when McFarlane releases these that they're reprints, and you can tell because of the DC logo on the back, which is, I hate reading them because that black, it gets the oils from your fingers and it's like fingerprints, but it is what it is. I just wish there was a way that he could get original copies to give to people instead. But nonetheless, I have the copy. Cover is beautiful with John, Ray, the Atom, and then this character called Rott. Who's Rott? Let's dive into this. This is part 2 of what's called Blood Secrets. This is Dan Jurgens' story and art design. Rick Burchett doing the art, Willie Schubert doing the letters, Gene D'Angelo doing the colors, Ruben Diaz was the assistant editor, and Brian Augustin the editor. Now that's important to keep in mind because Brian Augustin, RIP, was the one that wrote Batman Gotham by Gaslight. So this guy knows the DC universe, and we just open up with this big punch with Ray being smashed into the wall, which while trying to hang on to Adam in this, like, I guess force field is what it's called. And we see him fighting this character called Rott. Little creep, you come to my domain as though it's a circus attraction. Yow! I'll snap your spine into the many piles. They can't be counted. Hey, cool it, gruesome. I'm not looking for a fight. And now one thing, like when you look at the Ray, I'm not sure if you guys know what year Ray came out, let me know. The print date on this particular book was 1993. The run from this started in 89, from what I understand. But the reason I'm saying that is because, what was it, 1981, when the graphic novels of the New Mutants came out? It was like 81 or 83, one of those two. But Ray, to me, looks so much like Sunspot, it's ridiculous. He goes, but if you are, I'll give it to you. Once you eat some of this power, you'll know you bit off too much. Dinner is served. And Ray, he's not as hot-headed as I say like Bobby is, but you can see that he's young and he's green because he's shooting at this character Rott, and he goes, thank you. Your power, your sheer raw, unrestrained power. That's why I wanted you here. I knew you would make fire at me, just as I knew I could absorb your energy and use it to find freedom. And so Ray, not thinking things through like, Ted Cord or Ray Palmer would, has just unleashed this villain. Now, for me, I don't know the whole context. If you guys can help me out in the context. What are those things called down there? Comments. Because there for a while, John, we see with this crystal on his chest. I think it was probably, 92? It was 92, I think, when Superman died. And we saw, which a character I fell in love with, and I didn't know for the longest time, but Blood, Rain, and Ice are sitting there, watching Lois and Jimmy mourn over the body of Superman. And for the longest time, I was like, who's this Bloodwynd? Bloodwynd. It's like, I want to know more about him. And then as I was kind of going through, there for a while, I guess John was pronounced dead or missing or something like that. And what it was at that time, spoilers if you have not read any of this, so just heads up. John, because he's a shapeshifter, shifted into Bloodwynd, one of the two. Anyway. And eventually, I guess he'd shape back, but that's what this diamond on his chest is. If those for you watching going, hey, that looks familiar. So here's Blue Beetle and Booster Gold. And Ted says, hold still, John. I just want to get a look at what's happening inside that gym. You think something's wrong, Blue Beetle? Bug here is always paranoid about something. Up until a few minutes ago, we had a communications link with Adam. Now we have Zip. So this battle going on inside is inside the blood gym. And as Ted's looking, he goes, we've got two people miniaturized so small that they can ride around on protons. The kid's a rookie. If Chumble comes up, he'll probably react the wrong way, which we just saw. So yeah, I think there might be a problem. Now, real quick, before we get into any further of this, I like Jaime as Blue Beetle, don't get me wrong. But I've always enjoyed Ted and Booster Gold. Their relationship always kind of reminds me of like Tom and Hardy or something, especially during this era. And now that they've kind of separated and things have been rebooted, you don't have that buddy system anymore, and I miss it. And then I think now Ted's dead or he's old or something like that, and Jaime's taken over, which is cool. But they need to find someone that Jaime can kind of bounce off of, just kind of like how it's always been like Green Lantern and Flash. It'd always be to me Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, and now Damian and Dick Grayson. But anyway, moving on. We see this explosion out of his chest. This air, this earth, I thought I'd never walk it again. And for those of you who would seek to send me back, never. And John's just saying, don't worry, I'm considerably stronger. I know you. And he just about breaks John in half. And then we go into the blood gym. And we actually see Bloodwynd, what's the word I'm looking for? Captured. And he's like, no, not this way. When they cut the ropes, he's like, I can't flip them. Sorry, man, you used to fly. Not here. Without my blood gym, my powers are gone. Where is here anyway? And who's that Rott dude? Now, I could be wrong. Let me know down in the comments, but I think the reason that this comic is particularly important. Now, for the modern collectors, this isn't like, 1/1000th, 1/1,000,000th of a 200th, direct market selling variant or anything like that, or a first appearance or a death. But I believe this is the origin of the blood gym, which to me I find important because I was there when Bloodwynd was around. And so to finally see what it was, because I thought the character looked cool, but I didn't understand the gem on his chest or what signified it. Dan Jurgens here does an excellent job of explaining it. This place is a dimension filled with mystical energies. The gem acts as a gateway in that dimension and serves as a conduit to access its power. I am also known that your friend assumed my identity. I did not wish it so, but there was nothing I could do. Rott trapped me, held me hostage while he used your friend to suit his needs. So who is this Rott face? He is evil. All the darkness and the ugliness within. Incarnate. My evil. My ugliness. He is me. And so, we've talked about how comics are sort of soapbox opera. So I like this very somber monologue because you start to feel the weight of what this character really is, but also gives you some questions like Ray says, we need more answers. And so we go all the way back to, what would that be, 19th century, around the Civil War time? Yeah, we'll go with that because history, I know it happened, but in terms of dates, I'm horrible with them. But we go back to the plantation days when, the North and the South were divided. This madness began 160 years ago. My ancestors were brought here as cargo aboard slave ships. They were sent to cotton plantations in the American colonies where they became the property of Jacob Whitey, or Whitney, one of the two. A more godless man never lived. Step out of line and the whips were drawn. The other slaves were forced to watch. Examples, you see. So with 1, 2, 3 panels, Jurgens and the art team is able to set the tone and the time and place without it feeling like umpteen pages, without feeling like any type of, y'all know what I'm trying to say, but it establishes a very dark time in America and why we launch into what happens here. For 28 nights, following the cycle of the moon, they gathered to perform a ritual. Each night the ritual was the same. It was the ritual of the blood gym. They wanted peace so fiercely, they didn't care what forces they might unleash. The blood of slaves, mixed with incantations as old as the man's first footsteps on earth, produced the energies needed. Water and emotion boiled to a fever pitch. And when the ceremony reached its apex, the woman known as Clemma reached into the black cauldron and produced the blood gem. The misery of all slaves. Its materials are unearthly, magical. Its dark purpose was murder. She called on the moon, the winds of blood, and the power of the gem. Jacob Whitney awakened and felt his heart stop. His black soul was torn from his body and imprisoned for an eternity inside the gem. My people weren't yet free, but they had exacted vengeance. So we come to find out that the blood gem is a generational, you can think of it like a tangible generational curse that's been passed down through this bloodline to where it's finally come to him. And I'm not sure what Bloodwind's real name is, so let me know. Those who wear the gem become linked to it. The gem, craving evil, draws the dark side of the wearer's personality. Rott is the living manifestation of the gem. He is Jacob Whitney, and the deepest, darkest personalities of all my ancestors, melded into this obscene parody of life. And Martian Manhunter cannot possibly match his strength. And Rott says, "This is laughable. You have no chance. You are responsible for this entire affair. You have answers, and I want them." And then we see how John essentially assumed the identity of Bloodwynd. He goes, "You stinking piece of slime. You used me. Naturally, I needed to get out. I am sick and tired of playing the fool here. Living on this planet among these humans has weakened me, kept me in check. That ends now." And because of this horrible intrusion upon John's person, his own like I guess you could say humanity, Martianity sounds weird, but you get it. His own person has been violated, and you can see how he's becoming so jaded. And from what I understand in this book, John is ready to actually leave the planet. And then that's what makes this book so interesting, is as we come to the end, you think all's well that ends well. But John says they're back, and the true Bloodwynd is with them. Ray says, "We're back, all right. But the question is where do we go from here?" Because they realize all this stuff that has happened, these answers that they're searching for. And so even though this is apparently the last book that Dan Jurgens wrote for Justice League America, our heroes have defeated the enemy. But now it poses some very introspective questions for each individual. And it makes me want to pick up issue 78. That's how you know you've written and the customers read a really flipping good story. And that's why I grew up on Dan Jurgens. So I've said this before where I've said, Chris Claremont for me is basically the mold of the X-Men. Mark Verheiden and Steve Perry are like the Chris Claremont of Alien. Dan Jurgens for me is like the mold of DC, and particularly Superman, because John Byrne did the reboot in the 80s, and then Jurgens took over and gave us 99, I'm gonna say, percent of all the memorable Superman stories that we've ever read. And anytime I see his name, I know we're in for a good time. Like we just went over First Flight for Batman Beyond, written by Jurgens with Elena Grayson being Batwoman, and you cared, and you felt that energy, and I felt that in this book. I felt the villain's hatred. I felt John's desperation for answers. I felt the hopelessness of Bloodwynd. I felt the weight that he carries of this generational curse. So guys, Justice League America issue 77. You can get your hands on it. It is worth your time. So as I always say, please first and foremost support your local comic shop or wherever you get your action figures and comics. Pick up this issue, or as we just talked about, grab this page puncher version of Martian Manhunter because it is the classic. It has the loose cape, and it comes with this issue. And if you've enjoyed this review, really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the channel more than you could possibly know. And if you don't mind hitting that fancy little justice bell, Next, subscribe. That way, as I can upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and I love talking with y'all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments or the socials, which I'll make sure the links down in the description. Speaking of, if y'all enjoy what I do and you'd like to help support the channel, I have additionally left a PayPal tip jar link down in the description. Either way, thank you so much for stopping by and checking out the video. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, everyone.